the European Space Agency launched a probe to land on the Martian surface to scour the area for any signs of life. The probe, named the Schiarparelli, separated from its mothership earlier today and began its controlled descent. The landing module will land on the surface on Wednesday and begin working. Schiarparelli will take images of Mars and conduct scientific measurements on the surface, but its main purpose is to test technology for a future European Mars rover. Schiarparelli's mothership, the Trace Gas Orbiter, will remain in orbit, analyzing methane and other gases in the Martian atmosphere to help determine whether there is or was life on Mars. Methane is created by biological or geological activity and breaks down within a relatively short period of time once it reaches the atmosphere. The two craft are part of the ExoMars mission, a joint venture between ESA and Russia's Roscosmos Space Agency, and were launched in March. Landing a spacecraft on Mars is notoriously difficult. ESA's last attempted Mars landing with the Beagle 2 rover failed at the end of 2003. Beagle 2 disappeared during the landing process and was declared lost after several months. It wasn't located until January 2015, when new photos from an orbiter showed that it had reached the surface but failed to deploy fully and start communicating. ESA says that Schiarparelli will enter the atmosphere on Wednesday at a speed of nearly 13,000 mph before being slowed by atmospheric drag and then deploying a parachute and thrusters. The 577-kilogram lander is expected to collect data during its descent and operate on the surface for a few days. The lander carries sensors designed to measure wind speed and direction, humidity, temperature, and electric fields. In the next stage of the ExoMars program, ESA plans to send a rover to Mars in 2020, equipped with a drill and instruments dedicated to geochemistry in the search for life. The prospect of finding life on Mars, even microscopic organisms, has excited scientists for some time, but so far none has been discovered. Schiarparelli, it has crossed 310 million miles, 500 million km, of space on its 7-month journey from Earth. Open University space scientist Dr. Stephen Lewis, who co-heads the team that will receive data from the probe's engineering sensors during the descent, has said, landing on Mars has always been a perilous endeavor, not least because Mars has an active atmosphere and weather. Understanding the atmosphere on Mars now and how Mars' climate has changed is a key part of finding out whether the planet ever had a habitable environment and supports our understanding of our own climate. It comes as British astronaut Tim Peake has voiced his belief an astronaut will one day land on Mars due to the amazing condition of the men and women he served with aboard the International Space Station. Mr. Peake also detailed the toll being in space takes on the human body, revealing it ages the cardiovascular system 20 years as well as causing a decrease in bone density, accelerating skin aging, worsening eyesight and weakening muscles. Within a month of his return to Earth on June 18, he said his body had returned to normal, except the bone density, which could take up to a year. He said this and the amazing condition of the astronauts on board the space station, who had been there for 9 months when he arrived, gives him hope that humans will be able to explore Mars. Mr. Peake said, "It showed me that we can deal with long-duration space flight and that as humans we can adapt well to space and that we are not going to have any problem adapting to longer missions like Mars." He was at an event aimed at inspiring people, particularly children, to develop their interest in science. Mr. Peake took questions from young people in the audience, telling one youngster that if his cable snapped during a spacewalk he would have floated for months before burning up on coming back into orbit. The diversity of the surface of Mars was revealed in more detail this week when a team at NASA released more than 600 images of the planet, showing a range of gullies, dunes, craters, geological layering and other features. Each feature teaches us something new about the history of our mysterious neighbor, which used to be covered with oceans, ice sheets and erupting volcanoes. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has been circling the red planet, capturing pictures using its high-resolution imaging science experiment camera since 2006. The team behind the orbiter, led by NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena and the University of Arizona, has now published hundreds of new images taken by the instrument. Among the images are hundreds showing one of its most fascinating features, craters. Mars is now a frozen desert, but geological studies of rocks by previous missions to the surface have suggested the planet used to be warmer and wetter. The polar caps on the planet spend much of their time during the pole's winter in continuous darkness. When the poles are again exposed to sunlight. The frozen carbon dioxide sublimes into gas, creating enormous winds that sweep off the poles as fast as 250 mph. The caps at both poles are mainly made of water ice. Frozen carbon dioxide accumulates as a thin layer about 1 meter thick on the north cap in the northern winter only, while the south cap has a permanent dry ice cover about 26 feet thick. Both polar caps have spiral-shaped troughs, which analysis of ice-penetrating radar has shown are a result of spiraling winds. Meanwhile, earlier this week the Indian Space Research Organization, one of only 3 national space programs to have ever reached Mars, also released a series of amazing images that had been beamed back from its orbiter. India's Mars orbiter mission, called Mangalyaan, reached the red planet in September 2014. Since then it has been taking measurements, collecting data and capturing images from orbit.